Okay. Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to bring it up.
You can't bring the meeting up?
Nothing happened.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
weird.
I can't bring it up. How do I get on,
If you just go to sbcc.edu
yeah,
and then go to that
We're done?
menu, yeah, on the
Yeah.
left. Yeah, but he can't, and did you log in? No, that?
can you just
Do I need to log in?
just a guess without a password?
Yeah, you can. Okay.
Yeah, but it's asking me. Okay, that'll work.
So right before, when was it, you were elected as the chair, like in October?
Yes.
So my recommendation is that you all could
I don't mind
just
taking the chair.
assume you're the
Yeah.
chair
Mhm.
unless you have an objection.
No. I
Okay,
don't mind.
okay, so we'll go from there, but so I'll turn it over to you and you can be the official person.
Okay. Well, it's 4:05 and we're gonna call the meeting to order. And the first agenda item is committee members. Do we need to do any kind of roll call?
Well, you can see.
Okay. I'm here and trustee Miller's here and VP Fonstock is here and our CEO. And we have
And trustee Croninger is not here.
trustee Croninger is absent.
Mhm.
And then we have some people in Zoom. Okay. Item 2, public comment. Are there any public comments?
I just want to note for the record that we need to change the chair is trustee Charlotte Phillips Moore.
Okay.
I think this was just a copy over from before. It's not, so if we could note for the minutes. Okay.
We're trying to bring it up. as
It
well.
won't come up.
Huh.
I can get it to, are you?
Well, you
are
know what
able
the
to do that?
important thing is? He can,
Yeah, I know.
Can't even get on the Wi-Fi, so I don't wanna, I must be putting the wrong password in.
Okay. I'll wait till he's done because I can't tell if there's public comments from the public.
is that, have you tried to log
Down
in?
here, holy cow.
Is that you?
No, that's it, my spouse
Okay.
watching.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering. Okay, but you were trying to do it.
No.
Okay.
Liz, are you here to make a public comment?
No, I'm not. I'm just here to watch.
Okay, great.
All right, so it looks like we have no public comments. Next up is election of subcommittee chair. We sort of kind of did that.
Mhm.
I humbly accept that position. Okay, and then the next one is meeting schedule, item 3.2.
Okay.
So I know in the past, we would send out a doodle poll to see what works best for people based on other meetings. Do we want to continue to do that or kind of lock in a permanent weekend day?
Have we set any sort of schedule? Okay. What I'd like to do is take a look at the various reports that come about. And because I'm not sure that we would need a meeting in April, but probably in May,
Okay.
right after the May revise.
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so what we'll do is Brian and I can take a look at the flow of
Mhm.
information.
Mhm.
And we'll identify months that would work the best for meetings.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Just FYI, in 2023, we only had 2 meetings.
Right, we need to have more.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
Mhm.
so we'll look at documents and you circle back.
yeah, exactly.
All right,
Brian and I will do that.
for a schedule. Trustee Miller, did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Bye.
And seeing hands raised. All right, so we're moving on to item 3.3, March 11th budget forum.
So we,
Take it away there.
you may have been there or watched it.
I did watch it.
You watched it. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I started with is that even though you may have read in the paper that I blamed the trustees for the budget problems, I wanted to say that I
You
in
didn't.
fact did not.
I didn't read that, but.
Yeah, it's okay, so.
It was in the channels.
I did not blame anybody actually, but last of all, I would blame the board. But we did go through the, and we do have attached to the agenda a revised presentation. We made a few additional slides.
Mhm.
And if it's okay, I'll just kind of talk about those real quick.
Okay.
If I can go through if I could go, okay, here we go.
Just
Yeah.
33 and 34, and something like.
Yeah, there's a few other ones that I changed and
Oh,
and
okay.
made a little bit better. So if you
Mhm.
scroll down just a little,
Okay.
then the first FTS one, I found a issue with the data on the
So
FTS. If
is
you
it
would
the
scroll
next
down,
one?
please. There we go, right there. I found an issue with the data, so we corrected that. For some reason, fiscal year 11-12 was hidden in the spreadsheet, and so it wasn't showing on there. So we unhid it, and so this is slightly different.
This is
Okay.
This is the revised version,
revised one.
yes, yes, and
Okay.
it has all of the years. And so it is a 37% decrease over that period. And that includes a pretty sizable increase that we just had in 23-24, or what happened in 23-24. Projecting to have.
Mhm.
And so that shows you the long-term declining enrollment. So that's one of the,
Mhm.
one of the things about community colleges is we are really largely based off of sales
Mhm.
enrollment. We have other funding mechanisms, but it's mostly sales.
Mhm.
And from your experience that any company that experiences 10-15 years of declining sales has some restructuring to do. And that's us. It really is. And so it's a lot of our issues come from this. The fact that we have 37, almost 40% fewer students. And the other part is that our students are different today. And this is a full-time equivalent student, where before it might have taken 1.8 or 2 students, bodies, unduplicated head count to create that. Today it takes more than 3. So we have more students who, it means more enrollment, more, admissions and records, more of a lot of things generating fewer full-time equivalent students.
In other words, the number of students it takes to achieve a
FTS.
certain FTS has increased over the.
Correct.
And that's because we have.
Because fewer students are full-time. So the whole model was built on 1 human equals
Yeah.
1 FTS. But now it's likely that 3 humans equal 1 FTS that we get paid for.
Do we have any idea of why that's happening? Is there something?
Because fewer students are full-time
Yeah, but I mean,
than,
They're working, they're having a family,
Families.
they're, there's a variety of reasons. And we have fewer people from out of the area. And if you move here to go to school, chances are you're gonna be full-time,
Mhm.
especially if you come from, Europe or Iowa, right? So there's a lot of things happening, but that's one of them, is that
Mhm.
we have fewer full-time equivalent students, and we have more students to make that up.
So the
Not more in
decline,
total,
the
maybe.
decline in non-resident and international has
Can-
probably had a contributing.
Correct, yes, yes, yeah. We still have, I think, 40% of our total student body is from out of our high school area.
Okay.
But California, that, if you get out of rural areas, that's not uncommon, right? Because that's the part, we're in a system, we're not in, where I grew up, you were in a community college district and you pretty much went there.
Right.
Okay.
It's like, and it was extension of high school, basically, same kids, same, but that's not California, it's a system, and so that's.
So I have one
Yes.
other question about this. The slides, the amended slides that were sent today
Mhm.
had some changes. Would
This is one of them.
this, so you have incorporated whatever that new numbers were.
Right, it didn't change anything, I just made some clarifications on it, just
Yeah.
like this one, 12 years ago wasn't, for some reason, was hidden. on this
Wasn't
chart,
showing
so-
up.
But I mean, on the latest, on the 23-24 data was where I saw some changes and this hasn't,
Yeah, this has not changed
this has
that.
not changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now if you would keep scrolling, please. Non-resident tuition, again, this is a big one right there. That's $10 million. You know, we see every year that's different from our peaks. 10 million right there. Okay, thank you. But that's, another, it's not only the decline in overall enrollment, our international students, so non-resident students have moved down. Okay, if you would, please. Again, I was trying to make a point that there are several aspects of this. This is a symptom of our issue, not a cause. This is one of the symptoms. The food used to pay for itself. And you see, we don't show that in our financials because we've been transferring money in to make those two lines equal, right? And so I took out the transfers in, and that's what it looks like.
Mhm.
And if you add all the transfers in together over that period, it's $4 million. And so that's another symptom of the declining enrollment. Okay, if you would, please. Another symptom is the parking, right? You see those lines are equal up there at the top. We weren't subsidizing it then, but we weren't doing any reinvestment in any of the, the equipment or whatever. Most parking operations today have a visual component that reads your license plate, and they don't have people walking around. We've not made that investment. I did that investment on other campuses years ago. We've not made it. We're still doing exactly the same thing we did in 1985. We stick a sticker on your window, and then we walk around and look at it. Very expensive. And our parking program is made up primarily revenue of two types. One is the parking permit, the other is citations. And it used to be the parking permits were very high, and now they're a lot lower. Parking citations practically are even or higher.
I noticed there's significant dollars this.
In the citation.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. So I took out the subsidies, but I put that line at the bottom to say, what are the funds that we're spending on capital outlay in a parking program? And you can see it's under 100 at the top and next to nothing the rest of the time. In fact, I think that is zero through most of that period. So,
I have a question. So you're referring to that bottom line,
yeah, the very bottom one.
and that's the line reflective of what we're putting into the parking? to keep it
That
going?
is, so normally, the red line up there, which is our the blue line, which is our expenses,
Okay.
has several components. It has the people component, that we have walking around, the salary and benefits and supplies and things like that, but it also would have our investment, our reinvestment into things in the parking program.
Okay.
There was a time when we used to pave parts of the parking lots because the state will not allow you to use schedule maintenance money for parking lots because parking lots are supposed to pay for themselves. Now roadways, we can use our own money for that, but parking lots are supposed to pay for themselves. And if you go to UC or CSU, you pay $80 a month because they build parking structures. They have the same directive, but they borrow money and you pay it back with much higher. But we have a very low parking fee. And so all we want to do is just pay them occasionally. And you can see by driving around that we don't even do that. So again, another symptom of our problems.
Right, but that bottom line is what?
Capital investment.
That's
That is-
us paying for our parking.
No, the bottom line is us reinvesting, buying technology.
Oh, and we haven't done
We
it.
haven't done it, right? Paving
Got it.
parts of the parking lots, restriping, buying we have a couple of curb stops that are so deteriorated, people pull on them and then they tear the front of their car because they have rebar sticking out. And it's just, that's another issue with not maintaining our.
But again, the decline, the graph we see here is reflective of the decline in.
Enrollment.
Yes,
Mhm.
there's a
Exactly.
direct relationship.
Right, and you can see the big drop off there was during COVID when no one was here. And I even think we waived the fee 1 year. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe we did.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's why the revenues went to nothing. That means all of the money we put in there, what was it, 600,000 was all, our money. And I think that money was money we got from Hereford Cares or one of those, so we were using that, so.
Yes, it's shame because I know at UCSB, it's all based on this app. And you can just pay for your parking on the
Mhm.
app.
Yes.
There's no sticker that goes on your
Right.
car.
Right.
And they probably do have someone that rides around to give you the ticket, but now you just pay for it on an app. So you don't pay, you're not paying for these stickers
Mhm.
and you're using a machine
Right.
to,
And a person in a truck can drive
Yeah.
around to all the parking
Yes.
lots and patrol the entire thing in 10 minutes.
Yeah. with
Where we have
scanner.
4 people walking around all day,
Mhm.
right? And those people are expensive, that process is expensive. So what happens when you get the video, then you have 4 cameras on your truck. You drive along, it spits a thing out, you walk over and stick on the window, you drive around the whole thing.
Mhm.
2 hours later, you do it again, right? So that's the new that's the technology of 10 years ago, right? But we still have, again, the same thing we had, when we started charging for parking.
One person could drive around and check all of them in 10 minutes as opposed to,
Yeah,
4
because
people walking around all the
the
time.
app, it's about your license plate.
Yeah.
it's like a
The
video.
video takes everything and you just say yes or whatever, and it kicks it out and you stick it on the window and you keep going.
Yeah.
Very, very,
Mhm.
anyway, so this is just another symptom of our issue. So if you would, please. Facilities reinvestment, I didn't have the word major maintenance on the one before, and I wanted to put that on there. Because we have had some reinvestment, because we had a bond measure for a while. And so I added another slide too, so this is what I just wanted to show that this is the money in major maintenance, and you can see how. We were doing fine for a while,
Mhm.
but we have, 6, 7 years of not. We probably need $5 or $6 million a year if we were up to date. But we're not. I mean, we have something fail pretty much every day. Last night we had a gas leak. There are toilets in this campus that don't work. And every day we're adding a new one. I mean, we have elevators, just. Again, I could go on, but we have not maintained our campus and it's getting harder and harder and harder to even live here because there are so many things that don't work.
Like in a residence, if you
Mhm.
don't maintain things, it'll be more expensive in the long term.
Yes, okay, please. So I did add a slide, bond funded capital. I had not had that one. And so this is, we had a small bond measure, which we redid the bridge infrastructure, which was, necessary. We built the West Campus Center. We remodeled or tore down and built the press boxes above it. And we did several important things at the time. But again, there we are, with that needs to be a continuing number really to stay up. Okay, thank you. Capital investment in equipment, and this is another one. We don't have a van that you can put 6 people in and drive to Sacramento. We just don't have one. We used to have a program where we replaced them, like one eighth or whatever. Every 8 years you buy a new one, and so you have a whole fleet of vehicles that you rely on. We don't have one right now. And on some of our other events, there are cars today driving around security and in facilities that were cars I bought in the late 90s. I am not kidding you.
Mm.
Alex Pittman used to drive around in a thing and they still.
And they
drive
still
that.
have it? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
exactly.
Alex.
A 25-year-old car is not uncommon in our fleet. Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'll wait till you're done and
And
then.
this is an important one here. I've made the point, we have made the point that we are funded, the way the state looks at it, which is not realistic, but it's the way they look at it, that they want you to use your campus 5.5 days a
Mhm.
week,
Mhm.
pretty much all day. For those 5 and then some on Saturday, right? And if you look, these are the times during the fall, this semester just ended. If Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, almost 100%, what's that? 97%, 96% of all of our classes
Mhm.
are on Monday through Thursday. Friday, we have 3, Saturday, next to nothing. And we have it, if you look during the day, where 40% of those are in 4 hours. Right? And so we have a campus that's big because we do most of our instruction 4 hours in 4 days.
Mhm.
That's 16 hours. If you multiply how many days they want us to be, this is like I think we're like 30% of what the state's,
Are we an anomaly? Are we an outlier?
not having Saturday classes is not uncommon.
The Friday.
Not having Friday afternoon classes is not uncommon, but having them this concentrated.
In that 4 hour
I-
block
Yeah.
Is
is
concentrated,
an
yes.
anomaly.
Yeah.
You can leave here at 5 o'clock. I ride my bike. I can ride down the thing. And the parking lots are practically empty. They used to be buzzing at 5,
Mhm.
right? Because there was a whole
Yeah.
group of people who left working.
How
Yes,
do we-
yes.
How do we articulate that not having classes on Friday is costing us?
Yeah, even just in the evening, even just.
I
in the
think we
evening.
need evening classes.
Yeah, we're making progress. We're making
Mhm.
this point. These are just statistics that have been there for a long time. We're just now starting to shine a light on them and say, we can't have a campus this big. And to have a campus that's smaller, that has to change.
Mhm.
Because our campus's size for the vast majority of our classes happening in 1 4 hour.
Well, also doesn't limiting the time you can take a class affect enrollment?
Mhm. It does, yeah.
And there will be many people who will argue that we schedule classes when students want them. Right? Now, I'm not in the scheduling
Yeah.
business, so I can't comment on that, but I know that other places, I took a lot of night classes when I was in college, but that was a few years ago, so I'm probably not a good example.
Well, I think the other thing is that you have to look at it from multiple angles. Part of it is about the time block. But part of it also is about looking at what are you scheduling, so that, let's say, a first year student comes in. When is English 110 offered?
Right.
When is the math offered? And just making sure that there are enough options that are sprinkled
Mhm.
over there.
Mhm.
And you know, there are lots of reasons why schedules become a certain way. I think now that we're really focused on it, though, now is the time to take a step back and say, okay, you know, maybe we move things around, especially because the pandemic did happen. And so I think we have a golden opportunity to take a look,
Take a new look.
like really program by program potentially.
Mhm.
If I were, a sociology student, how would I work my way through the degree, the associate degree for transfer? When would I be able to take classes? And I think if we take that step back and make sure that there's enough offered, we can build a schedule that somebody could take all their classes face to face, or they could take a combination. But I think when you have almost half of your classes concentrated in a 4 hour period, I think it is really hard for students to build a
You
schedule.
know, if I might say, one thing that struck me about the whole presentation is you're outlining areas that I don't know what the word is, problem, or they're contributing. And we don't necessarily have the solutions immediately, but
No.
it's good for people to know
Yeah, and the complexity.
the
Mhm.
It's
complexity of it.
very
Right.
complex. Yeah.
So this next slide is the one that sort of, to me, says it all, and I added this one later. This is if I add up all of our costs, not capital investment, all of our operating costs. And I simply divide that by the number of full-time equivalent students that we have. You can see that it's a pretty consistent over time until COVID. Right, and if you look just at the end there, and the solid line there, that's just my sort of trend graph I stuck in there. That's not any kind of a real measure, but let's just say that is a real measure. And if you look at the end of it in 23, and you look at the difference between the two lines, I estimate that's maybe around $18 million. I mean, $1,800.
Mhm.
$1,800 between almost 10,000
Mhm.
and a little over 8,000, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
$1,800. And if you figure that we had that year 10,000 students, that's $18 million.
Yeah.
That means that we're $18 million more expensive, in general terms, than we were in 19.
Mhm.
And so I have said many times since I've been here, we're paid for 12,600 students. That's 2,600 students more than we had last year. And that's over $10 million. But this really shows you that it's even worse than that. With our increased inefficient use of things, it's even worse than just the extra money that COVID hold harmless and all of that business has given us. To me, this is pretty telling. Now, it's better this year because
Yeah.
our enrollment is better in 23-24. So it's coming down this year
Mhm.
a lot. But that tells you where we're starting from.
Again, if hypothetically we were to continue to decline in enrollment, the operating cost per student is gonna
Mhm.
continue to get more and more.
Right, so that's why we need to approach it from both maximizing FTES and controlling for the cost.
Right.
Because we want, because obviously we want the solid dark line to go below the other line.
One of the things too that there's been a lot of discussion about adding classes,
Mhm.
right? And so my simplified way of thinking about that is that we have a problem with spending too much money
Mhm.
for our enrollment, and our solution is to spend more money. And that's not really the answer.
Yeah,
We have to figure out ways to have those additional students
Mhm.
within the classes we already have, not add them. And we have capacity to do that.
Not add classes.
right, not add classes,
We
but
have capacity in our existing schedule for more students.
and then the other piece of it is also focusing on retention.
Mhm.
Retaining the students that we have and not necessarily having to replace them every semester.
And that's in the same in business of
Mhm.
sales, you sell the people you already sold to.
Right,
It's a lot easier to keep the students we've already had. than it is to
Right.
find
That is
people.
a well-known sale.
easier and less expensive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, so it's easier to find or to.
So I wanted to just share with trustee Miller that one of the things that kind of came up during the forum is taking a look at our caps,
Yeah,
our classroom caps. So instead of adding more courses, if we look at our caps, some classes are not capped out.
I watched I watched the video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if I could, real quickly, if you think of a graph, hypothetical graph, and on one axis is total number of students. And on the other axis is productivity. Now, you need classes that are out there pretty far, that are high enrollment and high productivity. Your Sociology 101 class with 65 people in it. Those classes pay for the ones down low, which are low enrollment, low productivity, which are nursing or auto mechanics or marine diving, right? And so for everyone down low, you need 2 or 3 up here. But we have an artificial cap running across that says that most of our classes have to be below that. So it necessarily makes our model not work,
Mhm.
because the community college model is, and most places is, that you need those high enrollment, high efficiency classes so that you can have your signature programs, which are smaller classes. And so by having that artificial cap, we make it so it's more difficult for us to have those.
so we have a cap in place, right?
We do have a
35?
cap, so not necessarily, so 70% of our classes are capped at 35 or below.
Okay,
And 50% are capped at 30 or below. However, that's through the curriculum approval process. That's how the caps were established. So part of having this dialogue going forward is, working with faculty regarding how the class caps have been determined and how can we increase those class caps. It's not a negotiated thing. It's pedagogical and through the curriculum committee.
is there a model? I mean, is there a model for a California community college in terms of class size that we're supposed to follow?
Well,
Just our-
it's-
You have an average, so.
An average.
You have an average for all of what I just described.
Yeah,
And so what you need to do is to monitor that average. And then when you have a proposal for a new class or something, you kind of say, where on my graph does it fit? Right? Do I have the capacity to take on that expense? Right? Because it will not necessarily or would, just depends. So you need to, as you have additional classes, to say, where on that graph will it fit? And do I have room on that graph for it to be lower? Or do I need it to be higher or whatever? So it's just a business analysis of
Yeah.
anything you add.
and where does that decision making take place?
Well, every college is different.
Yeah.
And here it is through curriculum. So this is where we need to work with the faculty through shared governance to talk about raising those caps. Temporarily while we work through this,
Yeah.
permanently, there's that. Other institutions, it is part of establishing the schedule and the administration retains rights. It just depends.
There is how do I say this, that one great feature of community colleges is the smaller class size. I mean, as compared to a state,
Mhm.
the CSU or
Yeah.
UC. I
Yeah,
mean, when I went to college, I went to a large university in Iowa, and it seems like most of my classes had 100, 200 students in it.
Right.
So they operate on a different model than.
You may
Yeah,
have a
they're-
teaching assistants and a professor.
yeah, their financial model is also very different.
Completely different, right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right, but ours is very well established, actually. A lot of people don't sort of do the analysis that way, but to me, it's pretty straightforward. You need, because we are almost completely sales driven,
Yeah,
right? It's just that, where to have, anyway, so I went.
it's a college
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
It is.
issue everywhere. It's not just here. Everywhere there are various ways that class caps
But
get.
it's clearly a productivity.
It is a
Yeah,
productivity.
Many of these, most of these things are, it's a productivity.
Right, and you can get run out of town very quickly in our jobs.
Yes.
If you
If
dwell on
you're,
this.
yeah.
Right, it's not, the idea that I say it's sales would drive a lot of people.
Yeah, there are
Crazy.
probably people listening who are not happy.
Right,
but
right.
that's, you know,
But in fact, financially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we pay the bills.
That's how.
It is, so it's not, you don't want to think of it that way, in any other aspect, but financially, it does.
I have a question just
Yes.
for clarity, because there's no key. So the darker blue line that's the,
The actuals, that's the
That's
actual,
the-
the one that moves
that's how much
around.
it costs us to have the students.
Yeah, that's the total cost divided by the total generated FTS.
Okay.
reported. And the straight line is just my line I stuck in there to say this looks like a trend,
Oh, okay, got it.
right?
Okay,
And just saying, if we were on trend, we would be down closer to that solid line.
okay.
And I was just trying to demonstrate, and the solid line is nothing. It's
Yeah.
just my,
And just showing us that we keep going up.
right, and so I can't really measure from that to there because it's a make-believe line, but it's just gives you an idea.
Okay,
Okay, going on, that was my main things, the rest of it, I talked here about adding all of those things together.
okay.
Mhm.
Just makes it a complicated
It's really complicated.
and a difficult task to solve. Anyway, so that's the majority, then, the reason we did the form was we got P2. Now, remember, in the funding documents that we get, I'll sort of summarize the rest of it here real quick.
Mhm.
In the funding documents that we get each year.
Do you want to show the exhibit C?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this thing will drive you crazy to try to figure out.
Oh, that was a really good one pager.
Yeah.
That's the official that
Yeah, this
comes
is the
from the
official one right
chancellor's
here.
office.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, so, and you remember the 3 documents or the 4 documents that tell us how much money we got. Now, we have all of these guidance from the chancellor's office, says how much we're going to get. But the actual amount of calculation comes on these documents. We got an advanced apportionment
Mhm.
before, and it shows you what we're getting. And then we get P1 now,
Yeah,
6 months into the year. We'll get P2 at the end of the year, and then they'll give us a recalculation. About a year from now. We should have gotten recalc for last year. We haven't gotten it yet.
and again, what do we receive to cause the changes in those few slides?
So what happened is that if you look on there, point to it. If you can make it a little bit bigger. Thank you. Here you go, right here. This is the number. This is the same. This looks exactly like. This is the number right here, 3.551. And that makes that number. So these calculations, they say, our calculated amount is 100 million. Our calculated amount plus COLA is 104 million.
Right.
And our hold harmless, the number that we won't go below is 93. We get to pick the highest of those. Right? And so people say we're in hold harmless. Well, that's $11 million less. And when we get there are some districts, that's where they
It's not
are.
really helping us.
It's not.
It's
No,
not
no.
helping us.
No, so we're staying here, and then they say, okay, that's how much money you get, 104, because it's the highest number. Oh, but we have $3.5 million less.
Except the
to give you.
deficit factor.
That's the
Mhm.
deficit factor, so then we get $100 million.
Mhm.
So it's a similar to one of these numbers, but it's not, it's its own unique number there. So that's the purpose, that's why we did the forum, is because we wanted to show that number before was 2.2%. And so
Deficit factor.
deficit factor, and it's gone up to 3.55.
Mhm.
Now, another little background, when the first apportionment document, or the P two, the last funding document for last year came out, that number was 10%,
I'm
Yeah.
reading that.
right?
Yeah.
And so it cut $10 million off. For one day, we freaked out and said, oh my gosh. And then they backed it down to less than one, like 0.8. But it turns out that 10% was the actual number. And all of the things since then have been state level magic accounting.
Magic
Right,
accounting.
magic accounting, right, yeah, so. That $10 million is still our share of the revenue they didn't get. So if you think that, they said that Prop 98, they were $9.1 billion short. And if we get 11% of Prop 98
Mhm.
for community colleges, and we get about 1% of community college, that's about 10 million. So you get right back to that 10 million pretty quick. And
Well,
so,
1%, 116
Mhm.
districts and.
yeah, and we're about 1% of the
Yeah.
population. Anyway, so I keep getting back to that 10
I'm
million.
sorry, but
Yes.
those other two numbers that you mentioned, the total California Community College number is what percentage?
Well, $9.1 billion is the reduction in Prop 98 funds that funds all of K 14, because when
Okay.
Prop 98 came out, we were all together. And we got, set aside 11% generally. It's not in law, it's just what we generally get out of Prop 98.
10.93.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so, yeah,
We being the.
Community colleges, so
yeah.
whatever they say the Prop 98 guarantee is, whatever that big number is, we're 10.93% of it.
Okay.
And we don't get 1% of that. That's just sort of what we
Right.
tend to get.
Ballpark.
Mhm.
Yes, ballpark. Which is very comparable to Santa Barbara County,
Yeah.
because when I worked there, we would get about 1% of the state,
Yeah.
that we're about 1% of the state. So anyway, that's the reason, this 3.696 is the reason that we wanted to have this, because that has increased our deficit. And so on the board agenda for tomorrow, we're bringing a budget adjustment that reduces our state revenues
Mhm.
another million or something for this. And so our budget deficit going, from the last meeting, remember I did this
Mhm.
last time,
Right.
from the international students, where we lost 1.9 million. And that brought our deficit to 5.6 or something. This will take our deficit budgeted deficit, not our projection, our budgeted deficit to 6.6 million. And that is the sort of the story we were trying to say at the budget forum, is that if everybody lives within their budget,
Mhm.
and if we get all the revenue that we had anticipated, notwithstanding this, we will have $6.7 million deficit. In the board agenda for tomorrow, we have also recognized that there are a couple of places where we did not budget enough and we were asking for additional funds. One of them is in legal costs, and we continue, despite our best efforts to reduce our legal costs. We talk to an attorney every day, it feels like. And so we're adding $250,000 to our legal budget. And on the other side, we did not anticipate the increase in costs for our students coming back in electricity, one, and electricity has really gone up in the rates. And so,
If our, the amount we pay for our residents, it's the indication, I mean, it's gone way up.
right,
Yeah.
so we're asking for $750,000 for additional money to pay our utilities, pay our electric bill mostly.
Yeah,
So, and the third thing is that I thought that we would be getting out of some of our temporaries and we would have less space, but that's not happened either. So those three things, the increased rates, we're just, there's more students on our campus, a lot more, and that generates a lot more electricity or use a lot more. And the third thing is, we're still in the same footprint.
Okay.
And by getting rid of the portables.
That would help.
We're saving,
That would help.
utility costs.
Right, yeah, I would.
we're
yeah.
working on it.
We need to, we are working on it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the other things that I didn't show on the forum that we did is we ran analysis of our fall schedule against our room list. And we had 83 rooms that we did not use at all in our schedule last year, 83 rooms. And if you think, that's like a 4 buildings. So now we've used 10 of those or so for Antioch. And there are some, there's been people who've said, oh, I saw that list and it's wrong. And with all of our data, I wouldn't say it's 100% correct, but it's substantially correct.
Yeah.
So if it's not 73 rooms that were unused,
It's over
close.
50.
Yeah.
it's close.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, and there may be other ones that on there where we thought there was a room is not. So I'm just, it's, again, some of our investments in data may not have been as good as,
Some of these things I think about in terms of, doing a bond measure of us being able to explain, I mean, somebody who's never dealt with this.
Yeah.
Goes, well, you got all this extra space. Why do you
Need a?
need it? But one reason we need it is the maintenance you're talking about. I mean, I assume that we would have a component in our bond measure dealing with
Yes.
just infrastructure.
repairs.
Exactly, yes, yes, yes.
Infrastructure repairs that's costing us too much money that we will
And,
save if we
Yeah,
update it.
and I keep saying, I have too many air conditioning units, I have too many elevators, I have too many bathrooms, I have too many. If I had less, the ones I had could be made nicer. And then the the investment we put back in doesn't have to cover the building we have, it could cover less. So anyway, okay, so I'm kind of, those were the main things that I wanted to go over. I think that's.
I think we should can we go back to the budget PowerPoint? Because I think we should go to the slides that were updated.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Since
Can I just ask a question about the slide, the form you just showed us, is that P1 or P2?
it's P1.
That's P1, okay.
Right.
That's the exhibit C
So
for
far, we've had
P1.
advanced apportionment
Okay,
and the first principal apportionment document, and P2 will come at the end of the year, June or so.
okay.
So we're looking for the first one that has one of these.
Yeah. keep going.
It's 33.
Okay, and this is some of the good news. And so
Yeah,
we had
here we
enough bad news. Here we go, right here. And so the little red bar there is where we had done some further analysis, and it's much better than we had projected before.
Is this a new slide?
So it's an updated slide, yes.
Since the
yes.
forum, but it's in the hard copies
Okay.
that.
Yeah, and it's
Fleming
attached,
made.
and it's attached to the agenda today.
Mhm.
Okay,
So it's not updated from when you looked at the agenda. It's,
Got it.
the agenda has these in there.
Yeah,
So this is one of them, so you can see the red line, and if you would scroll down a little bit further, we have two other ones where we found corrections. And again, as with our other investments, our investments in some of our data infrastructure is also not all that it could be, and so we find things that we know that we
yeah,
can.
and that's Keller and her staff. She's, new, she just started.
Mhm.
And her staff are really kind of taking apart things and updating Tableau and other dashboards. So I think we'll begin to see a lot more in terms of more accurate data and more of it.
Good.
And you can really see that we have improved, so
Mhm.
we are getting better. All the things that we're trying to do are making a difference. They
Mhm.
really are. Yes, ma'am.
So back on, it'd probably be helpful if they had pages. So back on the slide that showed the red line and the number 39,
Right? Yes.
709, this is good news?
Yes, it is. This is
It's
good
good
news.
news.
These-
What is
these
the good news?
Credit enrollments are up,
Okay,
right? So, total credit enrollments, we had reported at 36,000. It's actually 39,709 is our new updated number.
okay.
And so we believe that many of the changes that, well, also just the fact that we're coming back to campus, we're really, doing a lot of the things that we used to do, we're starting to do that better. That it's not just the things that we're changing, it's that we're just coming back in several areas. This
Okay.
is one of them.
So this slider was originally prepared without the latest P1.
Right,
No.
no, it was, but we had to update within our system
Oh,
in order to get the correct number. Yeah,
okay. So this is 39,000 is students and how, if you just total all the seats where you have a student.
Total credit enrollments, yes, yeah. I believe it's unduplicated, this is not my slide.
yeah, that's
Sure.
unduplicated enrollment.
Right, and so you can see that's getting back to, fall of 2020 or something like that, so it's better, because it looked like we were still declining and we're not, we are not,
The fall of 2023, we've had 39,000
right?
Mhm.
individual students. And then.
No, it's the number of enrollment, so that could be like an individual who's enrolled in 3 different classes, so
Mhm.
that's counting the 3 classes.
So it is duplicated then.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sorry, it's
It's
duplicated.
Duplicated.
So that's how many actual enrollments in classes people are
If you
in.
took every class in a week
Mhm.
and you totaled the students in all those classes,
That's it.
that's the number. you
Yeah,
get.
that's the
Okay.
number. And then it's later on when we get to
FTES.
FTES, that's when you collapse all of that duplicated
Mhm.
into one the calculation for FTES.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it does paint a picture that shows that while we have a lot of stresses, we are moving in the right direction
Mhm.
with enrollment.
Like this, but with a little
Yeah,
promise.
Exactly, yes, exactly,
Right.
yes,
Tick up.
Mhm.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So those were
Yeah.
I think there's one more of
Yeah.
these slides that hasn't changed.
Yeah, so that's
Here.
the FTES is up. And then if you go to the next
So
slide,
this is the FT, this is the
Yeah, there we go.
calculation of
Oh, yeah, and this
the
is
one
the-
full-time
Yeah,
student.
and this is the measure of efficiency right
Efficiency.
here.
What are what the denominator and the numerator for these?
so it's
this rate?
FTES divided by so it's students divided by the full-time equivalent faculty who teach them.
Okay.
And ideally, what we would want to do is get from 14.7 to 17.5 in order to generate
Mhm.
efficient FTES. No.
Right, I'm sorry. go ahead.
And no, it takes, I mean, the chancellor's office would love us to get to 20, but that's
Okay. Mhm.
really hard. So what we want to do is get as close to 17.5, because what that means is it's a full-time equivalent faculty member versus a full-time equivalent student. If we're getting, just for the sake of it, $6,000 for a full-time equivalent student, we would get over that. You know, a single faculty member would be generating more than that $6,000, which is where we want to get.
Okay.
There are numerous measures of where you want to get it. That's one of them.
And that's just one of them,
Is one of them. But
right?
that just gives you a comparison from where
Mhm.
we think we should be in terms of efficiency and where we are.
Yeah,
And when we were down, I think we were down around 12 something, if you scroll back to that one.
yeah. So we were at,
13,
yeah,
14,
12.8.
12.
Going up to 14.7 is really significant.
It is, it's
That's
huge.
good. What it shows is that the way that we're trying to manage the schedule is working, like we're headed in the right direction. Now, it's not gonna happen overnight, and we have to look at a lot of different factors like the schedule, like, you know, working with the faculty collaboratively and collegially around class caps and those kinds of things.
The size of rooms we're using today,
Size of rooms.
Mhm.
right? So.
But this number that's not telling you how many, the average number of students per class or anything.
No, that's a fill rate.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
different.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fill rate. Which you also look at, and so like when I was at Oxnard College as the executive vice president, our district gave us productivity and FTS goals. So, for example, in a given semester, if the goal was I had to generate 2,250 full-time equivalent students or FTES, I had to have a certain productivity factor, and they were really like, they pounded us on the productivity factor. What I figured out is that if I had an average of 87 to 89% fill rate across all of the classes,
Mhm.
that I would meet that productivity
Mhm.
goal. And the business officer had in the meantime said, and this is how much you're allowed to spend.
Okay,
Mhm.
So so it's about balancing what is the cost, what is the average fill rate, and how productive can you be?
Mhm.
got it.
Yeah, but but they also set it up a little bit different. They have an allocation model among 3 colleges. And Brian and I have talked about looking at, you know, if we were to put all of the information about Santa Barbara City College through a similar model, what would it tell us? Because what it does is it starts at the top of the model. It starts with how many full-time equivalent faculty do we have, or how many full-time faculty we have? And then how many full-time equivalent faculty do we need, meaning how many adjuncts do we need in order to generate how much, whatever that goal of FTS is?
So this ratio, 14.7, is not just attributable to an increase in FTES.
No,
Is it?
No,
no,
It's
it's way
number.
more complicated.
it's more
Right,
complicated.
yeah, okay,
It's
so
also, yeah,
that's why you say the things that we're doing are
Mhm.
working. That's what that shows us.
yes, that's what it shows us, but there's no one single factor that makes the difference. It all comes
Got
together.
it.
You can add classes and add FTS and make that number go down.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I was,
Because
that's
if you
what I was
build a
trying to
class-
process.
Exactly. So that's why I say that we have capacity.
Yeah.
They need to fit in our existing class schedule. The amount of money that we're spending today needs to generate more, not spend more.
Yeah,
So one example would be when you look at the average class size, if we were to increase the class size, we would see an increase in our productivity.
yes, the class cap.
The class,
Right.
right, if you, instead of adding more classes, just put
Right.
another 5 students in the class that is able to sustain 5 more students because they're not capped.
Right, so what we want to do is serve the same or more students in fewer sections.
Yeah,
But and
Yeah.
there's other ways to think too, because you have enrollments and you have at census how many students are there.
Mhm.
And so you may have a goal of having 25 students in
Mhm.
there, and you stop enrolling at 25, and at census, you have 20.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and so that's the number, 20 is the number, it's not 25. And so you need to that, so there's the various factors in this.
So sometimes that's a strategy, is to say, if your class is capped at 35, for example. If you add 40, if you go up to 40 by census, there's a high likelihood that you'll be at 35. Because people drop, students
Right,
drop for a
right.
variety of reasons. Well, then census is the date, that's what we get paid for. So there are different strategies, and that may work for some departments.
Yeah,
It may not work for others,
Yeah.
and that's why it's really important to talk about all of the strategies and all of the
Mhm.
little factoids that come together, because it's
Mhm.
not simple. And I think, and I understand that folks want a simple answer. I
Right.
totally get it. It's not simple.
no, I get it, because as a member of the nursing profession, there's certain accreditation expectations. And you can't max out.
Right.
rules,
No,
because
you
the
can't.
hospital has rules, how many nursing students can be with an instructor,
The BRN
you
has
know,
rules,
right,
yeah.
everybody has
Yeah.
rules, so nursing is kind of challenged to do things like that.
Right, or in a lab, for example,
Mhm.
you might
Mhm.
have like a science lab, there are only 24 stations.
Right,
And there's a reason for that. And
Right.
so you don't, I would never go to folks in a lab class and say, okay, start with 36 and
Right.
have people share, I mean, you wouldn't do
no,
that,
I get
right?
it,
So I think it's really just figuring out, okay, where do we have flexibility and and working with faculty? And I know that there are concerns about pedagogy
Mhm.
because their class caps in many ways have been set according to pedagogy. And
what would be an example of that?
well, there might be, like if you're in communications,
Okay,
there might be how many, like small group communications. It might be, well, if you have 50 people, how effective are you gonna be at teaching small group communications if you have such a large group?
got it,
Or interpersonal communications.
okay.
Now, the question is there a way to go from the class cap of 30 up to 35? Would that mean changing some of your assignments? Well, maybe
Okay.
that's good and maybe that's not, So I think it's about figuring out
Mhm.
where it would work and just, working with faculty.
No, and it requires communication and being
It
strategic.
does. And then the other question is, a lot of times the online class has exactly the same cap as the face-to-face class. So there might be a question or it might be an opportunity to say, hey, would it be possible to see, maybe we keep your face-to-face classes at this cap, but we increase
Yeah.
so those are the
Yeah.
kinds of discussions
Mhm.
that Maria and the deans and the faculty department chairs need to have. And the academic senate, because this is 10+1.
No, the budget forum was extremely good.
Good.
Agreed.
I came away from that understanding it better. It was a refresher from when we had my transition meeting with Dr. Murillo. And it was good.
Well, good.
It was good. It was very good. You guys did a good job. I can tell you spent a lot of time.
Well, thank you.
Putting this
I
together.
agree completely. I just one question. How many people came? Did we have a big audience?
So we had, what would you say, maybe 50?
We had a
people?
decent sized.
Yeah, it was well
And
attended,
we
better than
had
our
well
board
over,
meetings.
we had over 100, I think, on YouTube
Really?
watching it.
Oh,
And then as you know, I sent the link
Yeah.
out. Other people have watched it, so I don't know how many views it's had, but yeah.
One of the things I want to make sure that, because it's so easy to, when you hear us talk like this, like it's manufacturing and it's way more complicated. We're not suggesting that it's an easy,
Yeah, not at
we
all.
need to, increase or do something.
No.
It
It came through.
Okay, good.
You were solid on that.
Yeah,
That's,
think When you got,
it's, yeah, no.
well, when you got that one summary slide that has all those different
Mhm.
factors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, good. So that's mostly what I wanted to go over with the forum, is just to sort of
Okay,
go over them.
so are we done with that, with item 3.3 budget form?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so we're now gonna move on to item line 3.4.
Which is the timeline, and so this is and it's hard to, I don't know if you can bring that visual up, it's, oh yeah. I had a hard time.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay, so what we've tried to do is to lay out a new type of way to look at the budget process this year, because we're doing a lot of things at the same time.
Mhm.
One of them is we discovered, you remember 80-some%, 86% or something of our general fund budget salary and benefits.
Mhm.
And we have this concept, position control. And think of it this way, is that there's a position number
Mhm.
and then a person, and it's a position, and say it's it's an accounting tech.
Okay.
And it has a salary in there, and so we have a budget, say $60,000 for that person, and then $30,000 for benefits.
Hmm.
And it's vacant, and we fill it with a person's name, who, we hire, and so now we have a filled position, filled funded position.
Mhm.
And say that person quits, and then it's a vacant fund position. And we hire another person in that same position. And that's the concept. And if I add up all of my positions and all of the benefits associated with it, I will get a total for what all of my positions cost, both filled and unfilled.
Mhm. Funded positions.
Funded positions,
Yeah.
right, and so I have a lot of positions where they were, we haven't deleted them off of our records over time, and so we have hundreds of them in our database that are unfilled, unfunded vacant positions. And we are trying to go through that data. It seems like it would be pretty simple. But it has not been well maintained.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to go in and say, and the other part about this that's different here than other places is we have longevity, and then we have some other things that are tacked on to their salary. And so when I said that example of that $60,000 position, that person, if they stay there over a certain period, they start to get what's called longevity. And that's not in another table, that's a percent increase to that pay. And so that whole concept of what I just said with position control starts to really break down when you have a lot of people who have been here a long time, and you have this longevity, and we have some other factors as well. So that's not necessarily common. And so that position control methodology has broken down over time, where we have not figured out a way, and we're trying to figure that a way now, is to say, what does that position cost us?
Mhm.
Right? We know this person's been there 22 years, right? And their salary is 60,000, but they're making 80, right? And so you have a couple hundred of those, and pretty soon you're kind of far off in what you think if you add them all up. And so we're going through and they have just not, and since it's not easy, it's just been sort of rolling over.
And then on top of that, if you have people leaving,
Mhm.
they're replaced by somebody at a much.
Right.
At a lower
Who are
rate.
on the table,
That,
and you actually know.
that goes in the other direction.
Yeah, so.
Right.
Yes, and so that's easy. It's just all of it. So has been a process. One of the things I said in there is our financial management processes have started to slip over time. We just did not reinvest
Mhm.
over time in the things to keep that up.
Mhm.
And so we're doing that. And so one of the things we're doing right now is we're going through every position and every budget and making them accurate.
Mhm.
And that's that first step. And so we were hoping to be done by now, but we're not. Yes, ma'am.
I got a $1 million question. Do we have a number of filled unfunded positions?
Well, that's part of it,
That-
because this has not been a process that's been very tight, right? And so, and how we noticed it is, 6 months ago, there was a recruitment, and I just kind of asked Rudy, are those funded? And we look and know they were, a couple of them weren't funded. And so you say, how do we have a process where we recruit somebody into a
Yeah.
position that has no money? Right? Well, that money's in these two other positions that we never fill. Well, that's just, okay.
Yeah.
And so you have to step back and you start trying to fix things. And so that's the first thing we're trying to do, is to fix this year,
Mhm.
right? Which is, it'll be the first year in a decade that
That
if
it's
we ever get it right, that it's right.
Wow.
Does this involve using a different software or something? Is
It
it
really-
software related or is it just the?
Well, it will eventually be something that we automate. Right now, it's all just heavy lifting,
Yeah,
looking to see what is a person making every month?
Yeah.
What do we budget for them and what's the difference and why? Oh, because they have a professional development stipend or they have something else.
I see.
And we have a lot of people who are paid a lot of money, not off the salary. So
Mhm.
we have faculty with overloads and other stipends, and we have classified staff who we've not budgeted to cover their longevity. So it's across the board. So we were hoping to have a better number. So now we're probably about 2 weeks behind there. So by the end of March, we hope that we will have an accurate current year budget. And also where we budgeted before, where there's things like we've recognized through this process, we need to add money for legal and
Mhm.
utilities
Mhm.
to actually get this year's budget good. And then we're kind of doing it in a process where we're saying that is next year's budget. We're kind of rolling it over as identical to this year as a starting point to say, what is next year gonna look like? You know, given all of the other things we were just talking about funding issues and all. One of the other things I forgot to mention when we talked about P2 is that while this chancellor's office is saying we have this 3.5% deficit factor,
Mhm.
and the sky is falling if you listen to the LAO and then, you know, and just, if you just look at it and see that. If you listen to the chancellor's office
Mhm.
informally, they will tell you, you're fine.
Yeah.
That 3.5 is gonna go away.
And that's the whole weekend in the CEO conference. That's what they said. And then right before this meeting, there was some sort of notification that came out that the governor and the legislature
Yeah.
have cut some sort of deal on an early budget package. So
Mhm.
We don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
we don't have no idea what
But
it
the
is.
Department of Finance, which is the governor's office, you know, extension, keeps saying K-12, and.
To
community
14 is
colleges,
gonna-
you guys
yeah.
are fine.
That's
And
what
I have
they are
no
saying that.
idea how that's possible, but, you know, ignorance is bliss, I guess, so we're, you know,
And
we are putting in our budget,
Yeah.
we're saying, this is what
Yes.
the documents say today.
'Cause we're
But there
very
are a lot of
conservative.
schools who are not.
But technically, if the 3% went away, that's what, $3,700 or something,
It would,
3 million.
yeah,
3 million.
exactly, it would
3 million.
reduce our deficit back down to what our real structural problem is, which is around 3 to 4 million.
Assuming they're not nicking us somewhere else.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So to what you just brought up, I always view the monthly government some webinar, I forgot what the R stands for.
Government
And-
relations.
Yes, government relations, and it's like they're speaking, you're getting two messages, you're getting, oh, but the K through 14 is gonna be fine. But the other messaging is, you need to flatten your costs.
Right.
They
right.
keep, you need to flatten your costs, you need to look at what your spend is, and you need to flatten your costs.
Yeah.
And that they are projecting multiple year deficit, not just this year. And so, which is why they are supporting a bond. There's a piece of legislation, they're supporting a bond.
When you spend too much money, what do? You borrow some, I guess, it's
Yeah.
when you use your American Express card to pay off your Visa. You know, that's an old joke, but that's sort of what it sounds like. so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, me too.
You know, when you write the rules in the state, then it's all gap, right? It's
Yeah.
fine, because it is by definition legal if you said it was. So no matter how
Yeah.
it was. So anyway, what we're trying to do is to create a good budget this year. Roll it over to next year. We're putting it in our reporting system and simpler system so everybody can see it, and then we have our work cut out for us to figure out what does the May revise say? What are we
Yeah.
gonna do? Because right now, if you think of our you take out all the deficit factor, we budgeted about $1 million more in spending than we had. At the end of the day, remember, we had that $650,000 we had not accounted for the early retirement, and we just had spent more, but it seemed, almost quaint back then, $400,000, deficit when we had 35 million in the bank, so. Then we lost $2 million roughly for international students. So that makes it around 3. And then I just added about $1 million more for utilities and. So that's about, what's that, $4 million. That's our actual problem. Right? Even if the state pays us our inflated amount and we get it all, we still have a $4 million. So, and if you think about it in terms of what we earn, right? If we're getting $10 million more than we're earning and, that other thing, and we're 4 million over that. So it's starting to get back to where that number shows, that we really do have a sizable organization cost compared to what in 2018 we had prior to the pandemic, where we were earning and spending about the same amount of money, right? We have a significant difference, and that's going to be our challenge. Even if the state pays us all the money and there is no deficit factor, which I don't think that's going to happen, we still have a big problem. And that's about $4 million. So in the budget process that we go
Is
through,
that what you would call our structural?
deficit,
Yep.
yes, that is, we spend more without any new initiatives or anything.
And that's
Just
about- And what you're saying is that regardless of what the state does in coming weeks, months.
Correct.
We're still gonna have a $4 million.
So even if we ignored the state issues and just concentrated on ours and steps to lower that. And so that's all this process through September.
Okay,
So, and while the state has said over and over again, you'll be fine this year, this is next year.
yeah.
And they haven't said that for next year. So that's that one. That just wanted to show you sort of where that,
Okay. All right.
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we are now on agenda item 3.5.
And this is the document that we bring each month. It's the standard, and we've taken out our projection because the projection made so much unhappiness. And so, because, we're kind of showing, even without a projection, if everybody were, if you could believe, thank you very much. If everybody, yeah, perfect. If everybody spends within their budget and we get all the revenue we're promised, that we will have 5.587. That's our new number. It was 5.8 last year, but as we were making those corrections in the position control, it automatically changes budget. We're gonna bring back a summary of all those to you. But that's our number, and that's the number that I showed last month when I brought that item. Remember I said that the item that we were gonna lower the revenue for international students? It showed our budgeted deficit of 5.8, and it's 5.5. So we've lowered that by some of the corrections in our budget that we're doing through the budget process. So it's 5.8. So we start at 5.587, and then we add $1 million to that for my legal and utilities. So that makes 6.5, and then we add another $1 million for the 3.5 deficit factor. So that shows you we're, again, 3 million of that is unknown right now. It could go away. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that possibly 3 million of the 5.5 deficit could go away.
Yes, if the deficit factor is under 1%.
Okay.
But it still gets back to what our structural
Got
problem
it.
is.
And then the highlighted blue column,
That's just year to date.
year to
Yeah,
date.
It's
so year-
not, yeah, it's not a meaningful number, really.
That's what I was.
But year to date, we are at, what is that?
We just-
13,296.
Right, we just receive our finance, our funding after we've spent it.
And that's just the unrestricted general
Right,
fund.
right, right,
It doesn't,
And it's
that's
not-
not,
And it's not useful to look, I guess this is a question, it's not useful, is it, to compare the year-to-dates?
With
at this
the
point to
percentage.
prior years,
Yeah.
because you're spending at different times.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
are, and,
yes.
yeah, no, and, you know, again, if we had a good investment in our financial system, we would have monthly budgeting.
Yeah.
And you would know what I'm expected to spend every month.
yeah,
Then I could say, am I ahead or behind what I expect to spend that month? We don't have that.
No.
So we do rough calculations, what have we done today? And then our projections typically I think are more accurate, but we're not doing it, because I think right now this tells enough of a story.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you an idea, even if everybody were to live within their budget without having the argument, we don't believe that projections are accurate. This is bad enough to see this. So anyway, this is the monthly.
So the variance, you look at that column, that's kind of meaningless too.
Exactly, no,
That's,
Yeah.
you just add the two together to get what the.
yeah, exactly. It just shows our revenue doesn't come in 1/12 and we don't spend 1/12.
Theoretically, it tells you how much money is left in the budget to spend.
mhm,
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
so, yeah, again, yeah, it's not, and this is the reports that you guys got for years here.
Yes.
This was it right here before we started doing the projection amount, so. But we're trying to be on top of anything that changes the budget to come to you to show you that.
Mhm.
Because that's, pretty fundamental to what we do. So that's it. That's why I think those are my items.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So on the form, the one that shows the FTES assumptions, that document,
Yes,
mhm.
so in one of these categories, see where it says non-credit enhance, and then you got non-credit, non-enhance. What does this enhance, non-enhance, what does that mean?
some non-credit classes pay more than credit classes.
Mhm.
Oh.
And some non-credit classes pay less than. So
Yeah,
they're different, enhance is what you want.
enhance is what you want, and
You
that's
want enhance,
usually, yeah,
Okay,
because what enhanced is paid at the same rate as credit. And not enhanced is paid at 50%. And for the most part, enhanced are short-term vocational and classes like that. And we could, this is a possibility of having a presentation from Vice President Corolla Smith to talk about what the differences are and, what the balance is in our enhanced versus not enhanced, and our adult high school. There's a lot there, so I'll make a note.
okay, and then.
So not all classes are created equal, just as
Oh, I-
a specific metric.
Yeah.
There are different successes, I don't know if you saw in our presentation, some of those are 6 points, some of them are 1 point.
No, I get it, I just didn't, what that terminology, I was like, enhanced, not enhanced. Okay, so that being said, when you look at the enhanced versus the non-enhanced, and it shows these numbers, but then you have in your current status, no change, so am I to assume that we are just trending this as par for the course, and that's why there's no change?
I'm not sure. I'm not, this is a document that he's used. I think it's mostly based off of have any of our assumptions changed?
Mhm.
And we have not, so if we said we're gonna get 5% growth in that, and that's what's in our budget, it may still be that.
Yeah.
It's our assumptions that have not changed.
And I think this is trying to be more on the conservative side, because we did predict at the beginning of the year that international was gonna be higher. And so I think we're going with what we thought it was gonna be, but we already know from seeing that other chart, how the P1 came higher, that this will go up.
Okay. Cause if we are able to somehow, capitalize on that enhanced portion, that'll help us out.
And that is exactly what they're doing
Correct.
Okay.
in adult ed, but I made a note and we'll have a presentation.
Okay, I have one more question.
Mhm.
So when you put things in the brackets, that's a decrease, right?
Yeah,
Negative.
it is, you were a decrease or a negative number.
Okay, so then for the FTES allocation line,
Yeah,
right, see where it says 830?
yeah.
Can you, what happened there? The reduction in FTE?
Three-year average.
It's a 3-year average. So if you look at, see, it says FTS 3-year average.
Uh-huh,
So if you go to 12,614,
Yes.
which is what we've been paid for based on hold
Okay.
harmless,
uh-huh,
and then you go to the actuals, the difference there is 830.
So
okay,
last year, we had 10,100 say.
okay,
So we had 2 years of 12,600 and one of 10,000, and I think it averages to that 11.
uh-huh,
Yeah,
And so what he's showing is that our average is going down. But now our average, since we're making around 11,000.
it's
this
actually
year,
going up.
It's gonna, yeah, we're gonna do a lot better. I mean, it's still, remember what we're getting paid from is the 12,600.
Mhm.
And now the average is gonna start to whittle that down.
okay.
Because that's, the major component is still 70-some% is that part right there.
So hopefully in the next report, whenever that's due, I'm not saying I need it for next meeting, but that hopefully that 830 will see a different column and it's a smaller number.
It will probably be a smaller number.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, because our average will have gone up.
Could you lower the chart on the screen a little? I can't see. Oh, no, it was okay then. I'm sorry. The second, yeah, I can't see. There we go.
Okay, Trustee Miller, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, there's a 10,100. That
Yeah.
was last year's
Mhm.
number, and we're just using that as our base.
Can we-
Again, please don't spend a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
This is just our
It's
assumptions
mid-year.
for our budget, and this is, yeah.
Would you feel free to give me a baseline understanding so I have something to look forward
Right,
to
okay.
in June, right? You told me look forward to it in
Yeah,
June.
there we go.
So then I'd be like, oh, and I remember, because look, I went through it. So with that being said, can we just look at this document? The one that shows the associate degrees transfer, so.
Okay.
Next
So this
page,
is
yeah.
basically the same thing then. This is our 3-year average. And this is where we are right now, is
We
that?
do not average these. These are actual.
No, these are average.
Oh, they are? I thought-
Yeah, the student success factors
Are
are,
averaged.
yeah, they are averaged. FTS, credit FTS
Okay,
and the success factors are 3-year averages.
So for instance, because I don't have to do
the
each
supplemental
line,
is not
is
averaged.
the
Right.
associated
Right.
degrees for transfer,
Mhm.
3-year average. We had at one point, like 1,300. And
Yeah,
it went down a little bit, and that's why we have this small reduction of.
Right.
Okay. But because we're in a better place, we're gonna see we're gonna be hopefully in a positive.
well, hopefully, but here's the thing, students are applying for graduation right now. So we won't know
Okay.
until after
After.
graduation and
Okay.
everything is settled, whether or not that we budgeted for 1,307, but hopefully we'll have more based on the number of students who are graduating.
Okay,
Still assumptions.
that's good to know though.
Yeah, this is all still
That's
assumption.
good to know.
Mhm.
Okay, I think I am. I'm done with my questions for those documents.
I think that's the last, go back to Jennifer.
Yeah,
quickly. I think
that's it.
Yeah. All right, so now we are on items for future consideration. So I remember at the last Finance and Audit Committee, I asked if we can have that category because we come up with all these great ideas and suggestions, and I don't want us to lose track of it. But
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give you more work.
Not to worry.
So, I remember back in 2023, you had mentioned that, and this is, I'm just pitching it out there, if we can start generating some topics of future, consideration. One of them would be, you mentioned you wanted to do a facility maintenance budget. You wanted to create one. Is that a part of what they're doing, the sustainability committee? Or is this something different?
No, that's the total cost of ownership to see what is it that we should be putting in, and we have a report from Cambridge West,
Okay,
which we've not actually sat down and had a presentation with them on. I got it.
You got the final report?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, because
So
I
we
think
have not,
that's,
I'll,
that's the next, that's the last meeting of that group we
It
need
is,
to have
okay,
is to
okay.
go over the final report.
so not to, and I don't want the list to be considered, this one is more important than the other, it's just to, document ideas. So can we place that on the item for future consideration?
sure.
Okay,
And that's right, and that tells you, based off of condition, age, square footage, what we should be putting into our facilities. It's a number well above what we are, and
Mhm.
anyway, so. it's-
okay. Now, just to let you know, last year you said you wanted to do something in regards to our filled versus unfilled funded. You mentioned that last year, so
So we are working on
We're
that.
working
that's
on.
good,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
good,
yeah.
that's good. Do we need to just put that for a future item?
We're still, I think we can, but I think that's gonna,
Come out and you right?
Yeah.
we, again, you ask about having an automated system. That's one of the things we want to do is try to figure out some of the tools that fell along the wayside that helped us to project
Mhm.
salary and benefits, considering how much. One of the other things we do is, this is a big one too, is that benefits.
Mhm.
If you're a single person, your benefits are say $14,000. If you're a family and you same position, same salary, your benefits may be 28,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And so some places have what they call a composite rate, which every employee gets 22,000, right? And so your cost may be 28 and yours may be
Average
14,
number.
but the number that you budget is a composite number, which is what you use
okay,
across the board. And it's just a lot easier because we
Yeah.
don't know what to budget, you know?
well, don't we do that with the cafeteria style?
I don't
have a
know, maybe we
certain-
do that? I
Yeah.
don't know, okay.
Yeah, I think
For
we
our
do.
budget, yes, because I know right now, we'll have a budget number in there and then, oh, they have a family, dang. So because then our funded position
Yeah, we have to.
Mhm.
will
look
be
at
lower,
that.
so I want to look at, there's a lot of things like that we
Mhm.
want to make it so that it's easier to predict.
okay.
So,
And then, just one more thing, you were gonna do a custodial cost analysis.
I was,
Yeah, that's what you said.
oh, gosh. Yeah, okay, yeah.
It was back in April of last year.
I was new. I would
Okay, so
say
we can-
whatever it is.
That's
Come
when
back.
you thought there was money available.
We can come back to that. I'll leave you alone for that one. We'll come back to that one.
We,
Alone.
I will tell you, we have fewer custodians by far than we had before. I have fewer everything than we had
Okay.
before. And the same amount of space, actually more, we have more portables, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then you were gonna do an IT budget.
an IT budget. We have an IT, but it's,
Yeah.
maybe what I was gonna do was, I don't know if you recall, we all of a sudden realized that we had servers that were past their age and we had to
Yes.
find $200,000 or something. So I'm trying to get, if I have time, a replacement schedule and funding mechanism for equipment.
Okay.
And IT is huge in that.
Mhm.
You have all of your laptops.
Mhm.
I don't know
Mhm.
how robust that program is now, but all the servers, but then all of the other things we have.
Well, software,
Mhm.
I mean, we see that in seems like every consent.
Well, then, yeah.
Calendar.
Yeah, oh my, yes. So anyway, yeah, those are still on my to-do list.
Mhm.
Is
Okay.
to come up with a way to have just general better budgeting across the board.
Okay. And the other stuff I could just send in an email.
Okay,
Okay, good. Well, thank you very
Well,
much.
I
yeah,
think,
thanks.
so do I just call the meeting to, are there any questions from those who are on Zoom?
No,
Okay, well, thank you for joining us and I'm going to call the meeting adjourned at 5:32.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
hope
you.
that's helpful.
Oh, very helpful.